Welcome to JANIX, the place where anime isn't just something we watch, it's something we live, breathe, and explore to its very core. If you're the kind of person who's ever caused a fight scene just to admire the animation or debated the logic of a magical power system at 3 a.m., then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and join the family. New stories, deep dives, and anime curiosities are waiting for you every week. Now, let's dive into a world of demons, knights, curses, and sins. Welcome to the legend of Nanatsu no Taizai. Imagine a kingdom where knights wield more than just swords, where sacred treasures amplify supernatural powers, and betrayal is written in prophecy. That's the world of the 7 deadly sins, a kingdom that's both ancient and cursed, familiar yet full of secrets. But did you know this story was almost something completely different?
Let's talk about Meliodas, the smiling, fearless leader who carries centuries of guilt behind those glowing eyes. One of the most surprising things fans often miss is that his character is based on anti-hero archetypes found in European folklore. That's right, Meliodas, with his dragon tattoo and childish charm, was inspired by knights of Arthurian legend. But the twist? His power level is anything but ancient. With full counter, Meliodas doesn't just reflect magic attacks, he makes you regret ever casting them. And speaking of regrets, Elizabeth, the soft-spoken princess who seems like a typical damsel at first, is actually a character wrapped in mystery. What if I told you she isn't just one girl? Elizabeth is a reincarnated goddess, cursed to be reborn again and again, each time destined to fall in love with Meliodas and die before his eyes. This twisted fate turns their love story into a centuries-long tragedy, where each kiss is a promise and each death is a heartbreak. But what truly makes this anime so addictive isn't just the combat or the romance. It's the hidden meanings behind each sin. Let's rewind. Every sin was branded with a title and a crime they supposedly committed. But here's the thing. None of the sins are truly guilty. Not in the way the world thinks. Take Ban, for example. Labeled as the sin of greed for trying to steal the fountain of youth, but what he really did was fall in love. He drank the water not out of selfishness, but to save Elaine, the guardian of the forest. And in doing so, he became immortal. And alone. There's a heartbreaking symmetry in this world. Every character is powerful because they've suffered. Every laugh they share is a layer covering centuries of pain. And if you look closely, even their names reflect this.
Diane, the gentle giant, is misunderstood by both humans and giants alike. She's the sin of envy, but what she envies isn't power or fame. It's love, acceptance, a place to belong. Her envy isn't ugly, it's tragically human. And King, the sin of sloth, he's not lazy, he's haunted. A fairy king who failed his people and lives every day trying to make it right. His sloth is a metaphor for paralysis by guilt. And when he fights, it's not to prove himself, it's to make peace with who he was. These layers, these symbolisms, are what elevate Nanatsu no Taizai from just another fantasy anime to something unforgettable. And here's a fun fact. The sacred treasures, those magical weapons tied to each sin, were inspired by actual legendary relics from global mythology. Like the Gideon hammer, which Diane uses, is named after a biblical warrior, or Lostvein, Meliodas' sword, which splits him into multiple clones, a clever nod to his fragmented soul. Now, if you've been watching the anime and thought, wow, the animation really changed halfway through, you're not imagining things. The first 2 seasons were animated by A1 Pictures, known for their crisp fight scenes. But after season 2, the production moved to Studio Dean, which led to a lot of controversy. Fans noticed a big drop in animation quality, especially in the fight between Meliodas and Escanor. The memes? Oh, they exploded. But behind the scenes, it was a battle of tight schedules and production chaos, a tragedy almost as dramatic as the anime itself. Still, the heart of the series remained strong. Friendship, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds between people who were once called monsters.
When the sun rises in Britannia, one man becomes a god, a walking force of nature, the lion's sin of pride, Escanor. His power, sunshine, is so intense that at high noon, not even Meliodas can defeat him. But what most fans don't know is that Escanor wasn't part of the original team in the early drafts of the story. Nakaba Suzuki introduced him later, not just for power balance, but to explore the duality of identity. By night, Escanor is timid, weak, and self-loathing, a man crushed by the weight of his own soul. But when the sun rises, so does his confidence, his arrogance, and his overwhelming strength. It's not just magic, it's metaphor. Escanor is a symbol of how people wear masks to survive. His pride is armor, his humility is truth, and his death, a sacrifice worthy of legend. His love for Merlin is another quiet storm in the anime, unspoken, unreturned, and yet it defines him. But who is Merlin really? The boar's sin of gluttony is more than a seductive genius with infinite spells. Her true name is Belialuin's last survivor, a child prodigy from a vanished city of sorcerers. Her appetite for knowledge is the gluttony that cursed her, an unquenchable hunger for truth that led her to defy even gods. Here's something only true fans caught. Merlin manipulated time itself to stop aging at the moment of her greatest magical potential. She made a pact with the Demon King and the Supreme Deity, both of whom she tricked just to gain wisdom from both extremes. That's not just cunning, that's cosmic betrayal. And yet, even with all her power, Merlin's heart is hollow. Her affection for Meliodas is complex, part admiration, part obsession. Her coldness isn't malice, it's detachment. She's lived too long, seen too much. Love for her isn't romance, it's an equation she's never been able to solve.
But the biggest twist? Merlin's grand plan wasn't to save the world. It was to resurrect chaos, the primordial force that existed before even the demon and goddess clans. She wanted to undo the structure of fate itself. In her eyes, good and evil are just points on a circle, and she's trying to break it. Meanwhile, deep in the shadows of this narrative lies the true history of Meliodas and his curse. Did you know Meliodas was once the leader of the Ten Commandments? That's right, the kind-hearted captain of the sins was once the most feared prince of the demon clan. But when he fell in love with Elizabeth, not the princess, but the goddess from 3,000 years ago, he abandoned everything. He turned his back on his father, the Demon King, and was punished with a curse worse than death, eternal life, and the burden of watching Elizabeth die, lifetime after lifetime. Their love was a spark that burned down kingdoms. Their defiance triggered the Holy War. And the irony? Both were cursed by their own parents. The Demon King cursed Meliodas with immortality. The Supreme Deity cursed Elizabeth with rebirth and death. Together, they are trapped in a cycle that no magic can undo. And this brings us to the Holy War, a conflict so ancient its scars shaped the entire world of Nanatsu no Taizai. A war between races, demons, goddesses, giants, fairies, and humans. A war fought with sacred treasures and deadly commandments. A war that never truly ended.
The 10 Commandments, each bearing a law of the Demon King, weren't just villains. They were victims of fate, bound to obey divine laws. Estarossa, for example, was once believed to be Meliodas' brother. But the truth? He was Mael, the archangel of love, transformed by a cruel spell called Indura. His mind was shattered, his identity stolen. His crimes were never his. Every layer of the story peels back another tragedy, another sacrifice, another character you thought you understood until the truth punches you in the heart. And if you thought Nanatsu no Taizai was just about sword fights and cool powers, think again. It's a reflection on redemption. The sins are called sins for a reason, not because they're evil, but because they've all been misunderstood, betrayed, and broken. Their sins are metaphors. Their journey is spiritual. It's not about defeating evil. It's about facing your past, healing your soul, and choosing love over vengeance. Let's not forget Hawk, the talking pig. Comic relief, right? Maybe, but did you notice he's connected to purgatory? That's not a joke. Hawk's origin is tied to the very place Meliodas' soul was trapped in. His mama, the giant pig that carries the Boar Hat Tavern, is actually a creature connected to the demon realm. Coincidence? In Nanatsu no Taizai, there are no coincidences, only clues.
In a world torn by fate, prophecy, and betrayal, there are powers that go beyond what the eye can see. In the Nanatsu no Taizai, strength isn't just measured in power levels. It's measured in pain, in history, in secrets never meant to be told. And when we talk about secrets, we need to talk about the 10 Commandments. Each commandment was handpicked by the Demon King, each one cursed with a divine law that punishes anyone who defies it. But here's the irony: the laws they enforce are imperfect. The commandment of truth, for example, turns liars to stone. But what happens when the truth itself is twisted? The commandment of love makes those who feel hatred powerless. But what if that hatred is righteous? These are the questions Nanatsu no Taizai loves to ask, because in this universe, even the villains are trapped by the same fate as the heroes. Zeldris, Meliodas' younger brother, is one of the most complex characters in the series. Cold, loyal, relentless. But deep down, he's just a man trying to bring back the woman he loves, Gelda, a vampire from a forbidden race. He doesn't want to rule the world. He wants peace, the only way he knows how. Every battle he fights, every cruel command he carries out, is for a future he believes he'll never see. And then there's Gowther, the goat's sin of lust. Emotionless, robotic, strange. But did you know Gowther isn't even human? He's a doll, a magical construct created by a great wizard, the original Gowther, who sealed himself away in prison. The doll was made to carry on his will, to feel what he never could, to break free from the cycle of war. And in that journey, Gowther struggles with one question more than any other. What does it mean to be alive?
He manipulates memories. He rewrites hearts. He breaks minds. Not out of cruelty, but out of curiosity. He doesn't understand love, pain, or joy. So he experiments. And through that, he becomes one of the most emotionally devastating characters in the entire series. Because his sin isn't lust for pleasure, it's lust for understanding, a longing to feel something real, and eventually, he does. Now, let's shift to something just as powerful, the sacred treasures. Each member of the 7 deadly sins was chosen not just for their strength, but for their connection to a legendary weapon. These are no ordinary swords or hammers. They are ancient relics that channel and amplify each sin's unique magic. Meliodas' wield Lostfane, a demon blade that creates clones of himself. But did you know the clones only have half his power, yet maintain his full skill? That's because the blade was designed for tactical deception, not brute force. It reflects Meliodas' mind more than his might. Diane's warhammer Gideon taps into the very earth itself. Her power, creation, allows her to reshape the battlefield, not just crush it. There's something poetic about that. A giant who uses the ground not just to destroy, but to protect. King's spirit spear Chastafol is even more fascinating. Made from the sacred tree of the fairy forest, it can morph into multiple forms: a pillow, a shield, a swarm of daggers. It mirrors King's internal struggle, torn between gentleness and justice. The spear is alive, like the fairy king himself. And when he accepts who he is, the spear blooms into its final form. Proof that true power only comes from self-acceptance. And then there's Ban, the sin of greed. His weapon, Korachus, may have been destroyed early in the anime, but Ban doesn't need it anymore. His real power isn't the weapon, it's his body. Thanks to the Fountain of Youth, Ban can regenerate from almost anything. But here's the twist. His immortality doesn't make him invincible. It makes him lonely. He watches others age, suffer, die, while he remains untouched. His true curse isn't his body, it's his heart.
Later in the series, Ban willingly gives up his immortality, not because he wants to die,
but because he finally has something to live for. Elaine. A love that made a thief into a hero. A love that made a sin into a saint. So much of Nanatsu no Taizai revolves around love. Not the romantic kind, but the transformative kind. Love that rebuilds broken souls. Love that saves even demons. Love that remembers through lifetimes. And no character proves this more than Elizabeth. Yes, she's a princess, a healer, a pacifist. But she's also a warrior of light, a reincarnated goddess, a woman who chose to love her enemy and broke the curse of two worlds because of it. She doesn't just support Meliodas, she challenges him, completes him, and stands beside him even in death. The symbol on her eye, it's not just aesthetic, it marks her awakening. Every time Elizabeth begins to remember her past lives, her power as a goddess returns, and with it, the countdown to her next death begins. It's poetic, cruel, and beautiful. And in the middle of all this mythology, violence, and magic, there's the Boar Hat Tavern, a traveling bar run by a pig, a demon, and a runaway princess. It's silly, it's wholesome, and it's the emotional heart of the show. Because no matter how grand the battles get, no matter how ancient the curses or how dark the truths, the world of Nanatsu no Taizai always returns to one thing: family. A family born not by blood, but by choice. A family that sins, falls, breaks, and rises again, together.
If you thought the story of Nanatsu no Taizai ended with the defeat of the Demon King, you've only scratched the surface. Beneath the grand battles and divine curses lies something even older, more dangerous, and far less understood: a primordial force known only as chaos. Before there were demons or goddesses, before angels drew swords or fairies took flight, there was chaos. Not destruction, not evil, but pure, shapeless, unpredictable creation. And like all forces too wild to be controlled, it was locked away by the very deities who feared what it could become. But chaos didn't vanish. It slumbered, waiting, watching, whispering. And the one who would awaken it? Not a sin, not a commandment, but a king with no kingdom yet. Arthur Pendragon. That's right, the boy we met early in the series as a humble ruler of Camelot, awkward yet courageous, turns out to be the key to everything. The reincarnation of a soul chosen by chaos itself. And his sword? Excalibur. But not the legendary blade you think you know. In the Nanatsu no Taizai, Excalibur is a cursed weapon that stores the wills and powers of every great king who's ever wielded it. It speaks through blood, legacy, and burden. Each time Arthur draws it, he's not just fighting enemies, he's fighting himself, the countless kings inside him, the destiny forced upon him. But why Arthur? Because chaos needs a vessel, a balance, a soul both pure and broken. Arthur, unlike the gods or demons, holds no prejudice, no ancient war, no cursed past. He is a blank slate with a heart full of ideals, and that's exactly what makes him dangerous.
When Merlin resurrects chaos, yes, Merlin, she doesn't do it out of malice. She believes that the world ruled by rigid divine laws must be undone, that the endless cycle of fate, curses, and reincarnation must be shattered. To her, chaos isn't a threat, it's freedom, a chance to write a new reality, one without limits. But in unleashing chaos, Merlin gambles everything: friends, loyalties, even love. Because chaos, once awakened, can't be tamed. It doesn't follow logic. It bends the rules of time, space, and morality. And now, Arthur becomes the king of chaos, a ruler not of nations, but of existence itself. It's a mind-bending twist that turns the final arc of Nanatsu no Taizai into something more than fantasy. It becomes a philosophical war about control versus free will, order versus unpredictability, the old world versus the unknown. But while gods and kings clash, our heroes continue to evolve. Diane and King finally confess their love. Ban, no longer immortal, finds peace with Elaine. Gowther, the puppet, discovers real emotion. Merlin, once the enigma, reveals her deepest desire and her deepest wound. And Meliodas, he finally breaks the curse. With Elizabeth beside him, he confronts the Demon King within his own mind, not with rage, but with resolve. And when he wins, it's not just a victory over evil, it's a victory over fate itself. The curse that defined him for 3,000 years, broken. The smile that once masked his pain, now real. But the world doesn't just return to peace. With chaos on the loose, a new story begins.
And the best part? Arthur is no longer the boy king. He's now a godlike ruler, wrestling with the very concept of reality. Is he the hero, or has chaos corrupted him into a tyrant with no boundaries? The story dares to ask, what happens when you give a kind person infinite power? But Nanatsu no Taizai never gives simple answers. It twists myth into metaphor, turns fairy tales inside out. It shows that the deadliest sins are sometimes the ones committed in the name of justice, that sometimes even heroes must question the rules they've been taught. Take a closer look, and you'll see that every major arc in the series mirrors a deeper theme. The Holy War, tradition versus change. The Demon King's curse, love versus fate. The rise of chaos, freedom versus control. The 7 deadly sins, guilt versus redemption. And the title itself, it's not just a catchy name. The 7 deadly sins aren't defined by their crimes, but by what they choose to become despite them. They're not sinners, they're survivors. And maybe, just maybe, that's what Nanatsu no Taizai really wants us to understand. That no matter how broken your past is, your future is still yours to write.
The sun sets over Britannia. The wars have ended, the curses broken, the world reborn. But even after the last sword has fallen and the last spell has been cast, one question remains. What does it mean to be redeemed? Nanatsu no Taizai is a story that begins with lies, false accusations, hidden identities, misunderstood crimes, and ends with truth. Not the kind of truth that comes from victory, but the kind that comes from facing who you really are. The 7 deadly sins were never monsters. They were never villains. They were people, flawed, broken, stubborn, and deeply human. And in the end, that's what made them heroes. Each of them walks a different path. Meliodas, once the feared demon prince, becomes a true king, not by conquest, but by compassion. He chooses love over wrath, peace over revenge. He leaves the battlefield not as a weapon, but as a man finally free. Elizabeth, the goddess doomed to die, breaks her curse not with power, but with unshakable devotion. Her strength was never in her magic, it was in her heart. Ban, the immortal thief, gives up eternal life for something greater, a reason to live. His journey teaches us that greed isn't about stealing gold, it's about the hunger to fill a void, and sometimes love is the only thing that can fill it.
King and Diane, from different races, different worlds, choose each other, breaking centuries of fear and tradition. Their love is quiet, patient, and strong enough to bridge even the deepest wounds. Gowther, the doll with no soul, becomes the most human of them all, not because he was programmed that way, but because he chose to feel. His transformation is a testament to the idea that identity isn't given, it's built. And Merlin, the one who plays with destiny like a puzzle, shows us that even brilliance has its loneliness, that sometimes the greatest minds are also the most isolated hearts. Together, they reshape a world that was ruled by gods and demons and create one ruled by choice. But the story doesn't just end there. The 4 knights of the apocalypse carry the torch into the future. New threats rise, new legends form, and the shadows of the past never fully disappear.
Arthur, now the king of chaos, stands not as an ally or enemy, but as a mystery. Is he rebuilding the world or reshaping it in his own image? The answers remain ahead, but what we do know is this. The world of Nanatsu no Taizai is one of layers. On the surface, it's a classic fantasy. Swords, spells, dragons, demons. But deeper down, it's a meditation on guilt, identity, and the battle between fate and free will. Even the flaws of the series, the inconsistent animation, the rushed arcs, the sudden plot twists, serve to remind us that the story was always more ambitious than polished. It dared to go further, to imagine bigger. And that's why it matters. Because in the end, what we remember about Nanatsu no Taizai isn't just the fights, it's the feeling. The lump in your throat when Meliodas tells Elizabeth he's tired of watching her die. The quiet tear when Bond finally holds Elaine and feels her heartbeat. The chills when Escanor, burning like the sun, smiles as he fades away, saying, "I was born into this world for this moment." The laugh when Hawk, that silly little pig, charges into battle like he's 10 feet tall. The nostalgia of seeing the Boar Hat Tavern again. The music, the faces, the bond. Because this is what anime is meant to be. Not just action, emotion. Not just power, purpose. Nanatsu no Taizai teaches us that sins can be forgiven, that wounds can heal, and that no matter how dark the past, the future is always unwritten. That strength isn't about how hard you hit, it's about how many times you get back up after falling. And as the story closes, we don't say goodbye to the sins. We carry them with us. In every moment we feel misunderstood. In every time we love someone the world says we shouldn't. In every second we choose to stand, even when it hurts. Because we too are sinners. We too are fighting our own wars. And if they can find redemption, so can we.
If this journey moved you, if you felt even a sliver of that fire burning in your chest, then you are already part of the legend. Here on JANIX, we don't just watch anime, we live it. We breathe every scene, decode every symbol, and uncover every hidden meaning beneath the surface. So if you haven't already, subscribe, like, and join our community. Every week, we dive deep into new anime, untold truths, and emotional stories that stay with you long after the credits roll. Tell us in the comments, which sin did you connect with the most? What moment hit you hardest? What anime should we explore next? Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and never stop searching for the deeper meaning. This is JANIX, where anime speaks louder than words.